Wake up, wake up. It's the Friday of Combine Week. Yesterday was a huge day for the 49ers. We'll tell you why, talk about all the big subjects of the day, and get you ready for day 2 of the Combine. Let's go.
Hey, thanks for wrapping up your week with us here on Wake Up. Damon Bruce, Larry Kruger. Like and subscribe to shows on both of our channels. If you're watching on one, give a little love to the other, if you would, please. We are coming out of February. We are rolling into March. We got ourselves Combine Week. We got John Lynch saying he wants a difference maker at 11. Oh, Larry, should he be tipping his hand so much? He's got to fly all the way to Indianapolis to answer the same handful of questions that he gets in Santa Clara. So he's been talking quite about Brock Purdy and Dre Greenlaw, and we've got stuff to talk about with both of those guys as well. I know that George Kittle has been on his mind, extension conversation. Like you said, it's been a very busy week for news. And so a lot of people, I think, were surprised, Larry, when they woke up on Wednesday and they didn't see a wake up. And I even had somebody ask me yesterday, are you and Larry feuding? Is there trouble brewing in Wake Up Land? No, not at all. But during the off season, I think we're going to have Wake Up just go on Mondays and Fridays until we find maybe another sponsor. And then we'll go ahead. We want to thank Sam's for their patronage and their sponsorship. But that has been put to bed. I still say it's a great bowl of clam chowder, and I still love Sam's forever for sure. But we don't need to be doing this 3 days a week during the off season, Mondays and Fridays. And boy, this Friday gives us an awful lot to talk about, Larry. So let's just hop right in. Where are we starting today? Where do you want to go?
Well, I think we could start in any number of directions. The Combine news is what we titled the stream, top prospect, workout warriors, and Dre Greenlaw. Yesterday was a huge day. The 49ers, yesterday, the defensive linemen and linebackers all worked out in Indy. And John Lynch was there, and the 49ers were watching. Kyle Shanahan, I'm sure, was watching from his office in Santa Clara. And there were some incredible performances. And if you look at it, I don't think you draft anybody based on what they do at the Combine, but you may draft, a player over another player that you like because of a Combine workout, where one guy really struggled in the workout. You liked them both equally, and you took the guy who did well. So, the hay's in the barn as far as the evaluations on the tape and the football players themselves. But now you got to find out about the medical. Who's got this? Who's got a degenerative that? Who's going to, the medicals will tell you a lot. Is this guy going to have a 2-year career? Is the guy going to have a 12-year career? A lot of times the medicals tell you that. The meetings are really important. And then you get to put these guys up against a constant backdrop and evaluate them. And I thought there were several guys who I really, really liked as prospects. See, to me, it comes down to 3 things. Can you produce? One. Of the people that produce, how many of them are elite athletes? 2. And if you check both of those boxes, unless you have some kind of medical or character red flags that eliminates you, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the combo of college production and then elite NFL athleticism. And if the guys who produce at the very highest and the guys who test at the very highest, if you test at number 1 and you produce at number 1, you're number 1. So to me, this is just kind of it's a vitally important part of the process, because you kind of find out with nobody else there, exactly how athletic or not athletic some of these players are. And for me, it was really, really eye-opening for several guys yesterday who did very, very well.
Athleticism jumps out on tape. It certainly jumps out in raw combine numbers and data. It is that interview, though. The medicals obviously are very important to the team and overall, how physically well built are you, and all of that means an awful lot. But do you love the sport of football? Are you married? Are you a grinder? Are you someone who's looking for shortcuts? Are you looking for easy way outs? Tell us about, the interview is important, because if you are an NFL player, if you are rostered as an NFL player, by definition, you have met the match, right? You have met the mark. You have produced, you've been drafted, you've been signed, you have a contract. Now, how bad do you want it? Now that you have everything that you've ever dreamed of, are you still going to work hard? Are you going to get that check and kind of put your feet up and say, that's real good money? It was easy for me at every level of football. I bet this level is going to be kind of easy too. It's not. This separates the hard workers and the guys who grind, maybe probably more than any other sport. You can't come into the NFL and put your feet up. You got to work hard the minute you get here. And that's what you find out about character in these interviews. So it's a very, very important time. Like you said, the first 3 days of the combine is the combine that we don't see. It's the interviews, it's the medicals. And then the stuff that we do see, it gets everybody excited, right? And let me just tell you, Larry, for somebody who's not nearly the combine draft prospect geek that you are, when I got a guy who I like and I just see him become like the talk of the town, when I see him start trending, I'm talking about my guy, defensive tackle CJ West from Indiana, who ran so fast everyone thought they were running backs. No, his D-line today, no, obviously he didn't run a sub 440, but he was sub 5 for a man who's about 318 pounds, which is moving. That is big boy moving. And a lot of people in mock drafts had, CJ West, a 4th rounder, a 5th rounder, 6th rounder. That guy might be a day 2 pick now, Larry, because of that combine. And that's why this moment's special, because he's got the film. I hope he's got the personality. And if you're looking for measurable athleticism, he showed somebody some speed yesterday that made the whole NFL world go, whoa, CJ West. Okay.
Well, he burst onto the scene. Well, first of all, he had a very good year for a very good Indiana team, but then he also really burst on the scene with the way he played at the end of the year and the way he played at the Shrine game. I mean, in the one-on-ones at the Shrine game, in fact, you could type in CJ West Shrine in X, and you'll see it yourself. He just dominated. He dominated all the one-on-ones. Why? Because he's just got great. He's 6 foot and change, 6'1" and change. He's not big. He's 317 pounds. So he's built almost exactly like DJ Jones. And I think DJ Jones would be a great comp because this guy is enormously strong, functionally strong. So he takes away the A gap against the run. So he's really good against the run, but then he also has a lot more explosiveness and a lot more movement ability than you ever would think a 6'1", 317-pound guy would have. He showed it in those one-on-ones at the Shrine, and then he validated it with his workout numbers and his running numbers this weekend, or yesterday, I should say. So, yeah, no question. What you're looking for with the big boys is you're looking for who of the big guys can run under 5.0. Everybody who runs in the 4.9s, you're like, all right, let's take a look. This is what we're looking for. So yeah, he had a good day for sure. I mean, there's winners and losers always, and the winners to me, Jihad Campbell for Alabama had a great day. I mean, he really did. I mean, he's one of the most productive linebackers in college football. He was the Alabama leading tackler. And he ran 4.52 at 235 pounds, confirming his speed. He had a 10.7 broad jump. He looked really good in all the drills, moved effortlessly in space. He was clearly the top off-the-ball guy. And then Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, now a lot of people – this is, I got into this yesterday with Dieter because Dieter is like, oh, well, look, you got beat by Will Campbell. Will Campbell's going 4th, all right? And Will Campbell's going to be the 4th pick in the draft. Shamar Stewart led Texas A&M in pressures this year, okay? He didn't sack the quarterback a lot, but I'm telling you, this guy's like a Trayvon Walker. He's so athletic that there's no way. He's like one of the safest picks in the draft. He will not fail. Now, he may not be the best player in the world, but he's almost like a lock not to fail because he's so great athletically. He put on a show.
He's got a good
40-inch
floor,
vertical.
Larry, right? Like that's what we're talking about. Like we're not talking about your ceiling. We're talking about your floor, and your floor is you're an NFL player.
Well, I mean, it's people always get disappointed when the best athlete isn't the best player. It's like, oh, Trayvon Walker's a bust because he's not Aiden Hutchinson and he went number one in front of Aiden Hutchinson. But is Trayvon Walker really a bust? No, he's not a bust. He's a really solid NFL defensive end who's going to play 10 years in the league.
I knew it all along.
But I mean, he's not great, but he's really, really solid. Well, why is he really solid?
Young.
Because he's so big, so fast that, if he sort of gets it, he's going to be good. Well, Shamar Stewart's the same thing. He might even be more athletic. 10'11" broad, 4.59 speed. Now, he played at 285. He got down to 267 for the combine. So that's kind of a common thing. Guys will shed weight to get faster times and they bulk up so they don't really play to their time.
Right.
But
everyone wants to look good for the Tom Brady shirt off picture, right? Nobody wants the doughy boy rookie picture from the combine going public. So everybody tries to get those abs popping, Larry, before they got to get their shirts off.
Well, I mean, it's about money, man. It's about money.
Totally.
It's not about anything other than money. These guys make big money if they go high in this draft, and you go high in the draft by testing like a crazy athlete. This guy did, and he had, unbelievable. 4.59 was the fourth fastest among all the defensive linemen. He tweaked his hamstring running the 40. So the injury kept him out of the positional workout drills, which I'm sure he'll do at A&M in a few weeks. But 4.5 sacks in 3 seasons, and there's a lot of people going, "Oh, is this guy a bust?" Go ahead, think he's a bust, because I'm telling you, I watch this guy every Saturday. There were times where the game was lost and Shamar Stewart was playing with his hair on fire. So, I mean, not only is this guy not a bust, this is a really, really intriguing prospect, and the Niners may wind up taking him in the first round. As far as stock down, there were a bunch of guys whose stock were way down. Kyle Kennard for South Carolina, the edge rusher from South Carolina, is the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He was great this year, and he ran 4.73 in the 40 at 254 pounds. Guys that were 25 pounds heavier beat that mark. He wasn't great in the drills. He didn't have great change of direction, didn't have incredible bend. The arm length was awesome, 34 inches. The production's off the charts, 11.5 sacks this year. But he didn't do any of the jumps, and a lot of people think the lower body explosiveness is not going to be very good. So Kyle Kennard, Damon, who's like in the best conference, this guy was voted by the coaches as the best player, best defensive player in the best defensive conference, and yet he's going to fall in the draft probably into day 3 because he ran 4.7 at 254 pounds.
I think that foot speed, pure foot speed matters more obviously on the outsides than it does on the insides. Linebackers, if you got what, I call football speed, you can play. He's got football speed, man. He's you put the pads and the helmets on and it's not all about straight line running shit. And I know he didn't do well in the cone drill, which is all your lateral movement and all that stuff, but that guy's a football player. And my good news for him, if you are falling in this draft, it means you're going to go to a better team that will hopefully better position you to succeed than somebody who ran 0.2 of a second faster than you at a combine, who's going to go to a bad team because he went higher than you and will fail, because all football careers are based on the situations that they're in. So again, falling could be bad from your day one checkbook standpoint or your draft bravado, but that kid's a football player. I'm not worried about his future, where he's drafted. If he does fall in the draft, he's getting a football player, man.
You look at it this way. I look at it this way. You're rooting. I mean, if you're rooting that some of the best players don't test well.
Yes.
Because some of the best players don't test well, and now you're getting them later. You're rooting that some of the worst players test off the charts and that you don't go for it. I'll give you the combine guy. Let me see if I can find him here. But yeah, there's a guy who plays for Georgia. who's a big defensive lineman, who had a great day. And he's just not a great player. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. Okay. And Tyrion Ingram Dawkins had a tremendous day, right?
This guy's got a lot of names.
He's 6'5", he's 276 pounds, and he had a 36-inch vertical. He had a it says 4.86 combine, 40, I should say, which at that weight for the big boys is really good because sub 4.5. 10.4 broad jump. So he had 1.69 10-yard split, good number. He had a really good number, really good numbers. He didn't play. He barely played for Georgia. He didn't start at all until this year. And he didn't make tons of plays. I mean, it's like Robert Beal. You know, it's like Georgia produces some guys who are just great athletes that aren't good. I mean, they're great athletes, they're just not great players. So he wasn't great. And yet he was great, and he's going to be way overdrafted if somebody falls in love with the combine.
You know, somebody's going to talk themselves into, well, snaps in Athens are at a premium, so even really good players have trouble cracking rotations. So he's still worth betting on.
Well, yeah, somebody will draft him, you know, in the 6th round. But there's a reason, you know, Georgia wants to win football games too. There's a reason he didn't play. The other guy I thought had a terrible combine was Deion Walker from Kentucky, who lots of people love because he's huge and he's a massive human being. He dropped 9 pounds since he weighed in at the Senior Bowl a month ago. He did not attempt a 40-yard dash because he can't really move. And his movement looked bad in the position drills. I mean, he put forth the effort, but this guy's all wrong. This guy's got all kinds of bad body weight. He's an avalanche. His gut, it's like this guy, if he took his shirt off, we'd all vomit. I mean, this guy's out of shape. I mean, this guy is obese and out of shape with
combine, seriously.
I mean, this guy's got like stomach folds and he's really out of shape. I mean, this guy's got a body of a 50-year-old person. He looks bad. He looked so bad. I mean, when his tight shirt pulled up and you got to see that avalanche middle just pouring out like water, it looked awful. And then he's got these spindly little legs. And he's got all this weight up top, and he's a defensive tackle, and it's like, no, that, you know, he's either going to get hurt really quickly because he's got tiny little calves, or he's going to be washed out because he can't play more than 5 plays without, you know, getting a seat on the bench and some water and a towel. I mean, he was thought to be like, oh, Deion Walker, look at this guy. People were talking him up. Dude, he had a terrible day. The other guy who looks amazing,
doing this dude,
Princely Mulamalian, who started at Florida, went to Ole Miss. Dude, I mean, this guy is one of the best rushers in the SEC. He's a speed rusher. You got to see this kid's body. He's the opposite of Deion Walker. He's just absolutely ripped, and yet he ran his 40, Damon, at 4.72. Which is a whole lot slower than teams want to see from a guy who's 240 pounds.
Yeah.
And he had a 38-inch vertical, which is, you know, pretty awesome. But people thought he was going to have even a better number than that. He had a 7.33 3-cone drill. That's a terrible number. So, I mean, this is a guy who a lot of people said, oh, Princely Mulamalian, you know, Niners need him in the 2nd round. And he's not going in the 2nd round.
Well, again, if you think the Niners need him, he might be there deep into day 3. So him falling is maybe good for you if you're in that camp. You and I were on the phone yesterday talking about a couple of things. And, we mentioned about the value of the interview. Not only is it important for the teams to gauge the characters and the personalities of the players who are about to invest millions of dollars in, but there's also, for guys like you and me, who are trying to predict who the Niners are about to draft, there is an awful lot of correlation there. Now, not everybody that they draft went on the formal interview. Not all formal interviews become draft picks, but you can start with a pretty decent amount of confidence any list of guys you think the 49ers are about to draft with just the list of who they've interviewed. There is not causation there, but there's certainly a correlation there. The following defensive linemen, who I think all could be possibilities, first, second round picks, they have officially sat down and interviewed with Ole Miss's Walter Nolan, James Pierce of Tennessee. James Pierce is a name that's been linked to the 49ers probably more than any name dating back to the first mocks we saw before the season even ended. The kid from Texas A&M, Nick Scorton, Shamar Turner of Texas A&M, who's also interviewed with them, and then CJ West, who could be thought of as a day 3 darling, maybe now a day 2 pick, has also officially interviewed with the 49ers. So again, just because you interviewed doesn't mean you're going to get the job, but a lot of people who have interviewed have a better chance of getting the job than coming off the names of the list they haven't talked to.
Yeah, I mean, this actually is a list. Steph Sanchez, who's a good follow on X at Steph49K.
She does a good Nick Bosa impression.
Okay. She, on her Twitter, has a Google spread doc sheet, that, or Excel, I should say, Excel spreadsheet, where she logs in from whoever reports it. The Niners meetings, like Player individual
X
meetings.
Has interviewed with the 49ers. So she goes and puts in Players X, and she has these, several years of this data.
No, it started on January 7th. Okay. This is just who they met with in draft season, right? So like who they met with at the Hula Bowl, at the Tropical Bowl, at the College All-Star games, at the Shrine Bowl, at the Senior Bowl, and then now she's at the Combine. And then they'll do the individual workouts as well. Now, if you said, what do we, give me, okay, so explain this list to me. It's just every team tries to meet with as many guys as they possibly can. Now, here's the rub. You don't typically meet with guys you don't like. Now, some teams, every team's methodology is different. But you don't, like this whole thing, like I've heard people say to me, Krug, they just meet with a bunch of people to throw them off their scent. No. God.
No, there's not enough time in the day to leave that many breadcrumbs to nowhere for people who are, snooping around you.
Teams don't. I mean, you don't have that kind of time. So this isn't a gigantic, let's dupe everybody. So I went and looked. I looked at the 2024 list and the 2023 list. And what I found was in the last 2 drafts, the 49ers have wound up adding 23 players that they met with at one point prior to the draft. They added 23 of them. And you say 23 out of how many? I would say it's like 23 out of 100. Right, and they've met with, let's say, roughly 50 players a year, and they've in the last 2 years of those 100 players they met with, they added 23 of them. So it's about a 25% chance, but that is a high percentage chance compared to
1 in 5,
how many players there are in the draft.
Yeah, I mean it's if you're looking to narrow down your list of options, it sounds like a pretty decent place to start narrowing down your list of options.
No question, and they have met with a lot of really good players at every position in the draft. The big ones today, and today is the 28th, and she put in, 10 or 12 new names today. The big ones today, Savion Williams from TCU, who is the most Debo-like player in this draft. Right. He's 6'5", he's 225. We'll find out what he works out like in a few days here.
By the way, you want to talk about a player whose draft status will be directly correlated to his combine workout? It's that guy.
Well, he's a
player. He's going to go high.
He's a great player. I mean, I love his film. I really don't care what he exactly runs. He is a high school quarterback who went to TCU and they used him like Debo, except they also used him as a wildcat quarterback. So really on the goal line, he was the quarterback, and he would just run it in. So he's got running back skills. He's 225. He's got wide receiver skills. He's got quarterback skills. I think he threw three touchdown passes this year as well. And he's a beast. He's a total beast. I mean, he's big, strong. The question is, how fast? Some people think he's going to run in the 4.6s. If he does, he's going to be a day 3 guy. Some people think he's going to run in the 4.3s. And if he does, he's going to be a day 2 guy and maybe even a late first. So he is definitely an interesting guy for sure. Probably the highest rated guy they met with recently today was Omarion Hampton, who's an incredible running back. And I do think that the Niners are going to be in this for a running back. They met with DJ Giddens. They met with RJ Harvey. They met with Caleb Johnson. They met with Bayshul Tootin. They met with Omarion Hampton. They're all, there's a couple other running backs that are really intriguing too. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Marcus Yarns. They met with him. They met with a guy named Shunderick Powell. And Damon, you have to go check out Shunderick Powell at some point.
Okay, so look, I'm trying to
Shunderick Powell.
Who is Shunderick Powell? Who does he play?
He plays for Central Arkansas. But
no wonder why I'm not familiar with the young man's game.
Yeah,
whenever I ask whenever you bring up a name and I'm like, I haven't heard of that one, I'm always afraid you're gonna be like, well, Damon, he plays for USC. You should fucking know that. So when you say he's at Central Arkansas, I feel better. I really do.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not saying you should have heard of him, but I'm telling you, go check him out. Why? Because this guy, 4.8 yards after contact per rush.
What's his
number
name
one of Shunderick Powell. Shunderick Powell.
Right.
SHUN, and then the name Derek Powell.
Yeah.
Shunderick. Anyway, 4.8 yards after contact per rush, first among all running backs in this class. 1.4 or 0.42 missed tackles forced per rush, first among all running backs in this class. 21.6% explosive run rate, first among all running backs in this class. You do have to adjust for the level of competition because it's FCS. But
look,
this guy is
he ran for 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, 8.2 per carry.
He's a ridiculous. Here's the thing: when I'm looking for players in the draft, I'm always looking for, the greatest player that nobody knows about, the fastest player, the biggest player, the strongest player, the best player, the best player. This guy is one of the fastest, most explosive players I've seen on film this year at any position. He's a return man, running back, speedster. Shunderick Powell. So remember that name. He's, way down the list. And if you're looking to do a deep dive on a real sleeper who I think the Niners also have a lot of interest in, Taylor Elgersma, the quarterback from Laurier. The Niners met him at one of the college all-star games. He played in Canada this year for Laurier. He completed 73% of his passes. He's 6'6", 215 pounds, though, with a tremendous gun.
By the way, Mitchell and Ness I swear Larry's been speaking a different language these last 2 days. I have no clue about some of the guys he's talking about. Look, this is why you watch Larry. I mean, look, I work with Larry 2-3 times a week, and I'm knee deep in the freaking draft, and Larry uncork 6, 7, 8 names every show. I'm like, fuck, who's he talking about? So yes, it's happening to me. I'm sure it's happening to you too. And this is so there's always a guy at the party who sneaks off to do the drug that he brings for himself. Larry's the guy at the party who doesn't sneak off to do cocaine in the back of the toilet. He sneaks off to go and look at a Shunderick Powell from Central Arkansas. That's Larry's line of bathroom cocaine.
When I see a player on film that moves like that kid Shunderick Powell, I think to myself, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill. This guy could be Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill, if you remember, kind of came out of nowhere. What round did Tyreek Hill go in? He could not have gone in a high round. he had to be a late round pick, right? But anyway, he's this guy, Shunderick Powell, tremendous player. But that's not what yesterday was about. Yesterday was about the top defensive linemen, and the Niners. I think we have an indication that the 49ers are probably like, my guess is that they're going to trade back.
Tyreek, fifth rounder,
Yeah.
165 overall.
That's an incredible get. I'll tell you, Dieter, who's also kind of a nerd on this stuff as well, on our stream that we did last night, we both have decided that our sleeper quarterback in this draft is Brady Cook.
Oh, I thought you were going to give me a Curtis Rourke there for a second.
From Missouri,
Okay.
Brady Cook. We both love Brady Cook. Curtis Rourke's got talent too, but he's just a big statue. To me, watching Brock Purdy the last couple of years, and then watching Brandon Allen fill in for him, I've kind of decided that I got to have a quarterback that can move. I mean, to me, movement ability went from, wow, that's cool, that's neat, to you got to have it. It's a prerequisite. I wouldn't draft any quarterback anymore that could not move.
How about this?
The defensive athletes are too great now.
I bet you Curtis Rourke is going to have a 2-contract, maybe 3-contract long NFL career and be a guy who doesn't start more than 3 games. He's got professional backup quarterback written all over him.
He's got stature. I mean, he's got stature for sure. He's also got experience. He played a lot. So I mean, he's got stature. He's got experience. He's kind of stiff. I mean, does he have what level of arm talent does he have?
It's not once in a lifetime, but it's a lot better than most. I'll say that. He's got an arm. He's got a gun.
He's also a Canadian kid. We'll see. I mean, the beauty of the NFL quarterback position is we can all talk about it all day, but you know what? The guys who go out there and play, like, this is a very speculative quarterback draft. I think Cam Ward's great. I don't like Shedeur Sanders. I don't like Jackson Dart. I don't like Jalen Milroe. I do like Quinn.
Wait. I thought you were a Jackson Dart guy. Why do you not like Jackson Dart now?
I don't like Jackson Dart. No, I mean, I watched a lot of Jackson Dart. I just didn't, they didn't win enough games. I mean, he wasn't. He throws a good ball. I just don't love him. He had the best receivers in the country, and he wasn't great. He was okay. Milroe's got tiny hands. He looked terrible at the Senior Bowl. Shedeur Sanders has got huge talent, but he's very inconsistent. I like Cam Ward a lot. I like Quinn Ewers a lot. The rest of this quarterback group don't really like. I'm interested in this Taylor Elgersma, and I love Brady Cook. Other than that, if I had to take 3 quarterbacks in this draft, I'd take Cam Ward, Quinn Ewers, and Brady Cook.
Like and subscribe. It's Wake Up. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. We're going to be coming to you now on Mondays and Fridays during the off season. We got a combine this weekend. Everyone will have gone out and run and work out. So we will have even more for you on Monday. As the chat has been suggesting, these are a lot of names that people don't even know. They got to scramble to the Google machine to figure out who they are. So let's talk about a few names that people are familiar with. And you know what? Franco's chat right there is a good place to start, because Diana Rossini has reported that Howie Roseman of the Eagles is not married all the way across the board to his young defensive line, and would be willing to trade a few of his players to land a big fish like Myles Garrett. The other news on Myles Garrett that Diana Rossini and others are putting out there right now is that the trade request has basically become a trade ultimatum. Myles Garrett and Team Garrett is cutting off any and all negotiations with the Cleveland Browns, and they basically said, trade us. We are not signing an extension. We're not coming back. We're done with the Cleveland Browns is the huge blinking sign over Myles Garrett right now. And the Browns don't really seem to want to acknowledge that. They think that they can put Humpty Dumpty back together again here. And Rossini's saying that they can't. So Myles Garrett on the move seems something like that is going to happen. And when you hear the Eagles might be interested, well, that should make everybody scared a little bit because Myles.
Well, I mean, here's the story. Here's the story. According to the reports, the Eagles don't really want Myles Garrett, but they want to be in the deal flow because they know teams like Washington and San Francisco do want Myles Garrett. So they want to be in the deal flow because they don't want to see Myles Garrett going to Washington. And they don't want to see Myles Garrett going to San Francisco.
Here's the thing,
they're going to stay in the deal flow.
Is a little interested in Myles Garrett. Like, that's not fully a fake interest. You have to be interested in Myles Garrett. He is.
Well, I mean, everybody's interested. But from what I've been told is that the Eagles' interest is directly related to their fear. It's more for the block. They don't want him to go to Washington. They don't want him to go to San Francisco. Now, Tim Kawakami is reporting that the 49ers are likely to be a destination for a big-name defensive lineman that comes available either in a trade or in free agency. And immediately, people start throwing out 5 or 6 names: Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Joey Bosa, Harold Landry. All those guys are probably going to be available. And it just really comes down to what's the price tag and you know, what's it going to cost and how painful is it? Personally, I think Lynch has kind of prepared us for the Niners aren't going to be that team that gives up draft capital. I get the sense based on what he has said.
They shouldn't be, by the way.
They're going to trade back from 11. They're not going to trade 4 or 5 picks for Myles Garrett. They're just not. They know they've got an older team. They know they've got to get young. He said it yesterday. He's like, we need to get younger. We need to get deeper. They need their deep 86 kind of draft. It would be awesome if they can get Joey Bosa. But I would say that of those names, I think Joey Bosa is the most likely. But I don't think the Niners are going to be in the trade a bunch of picks for Trey Hendrickson.
I think there are two names that we can just stop talking about so we don't waste anybody's time right now. The Niners will not be getting Myles Garrett. I just think the price of poker is too high, and like you said, depth is more important than a shooting comet level talent on the other side of Nick Bosa. I also think you can take Max Crosby off the board. That is over Mark Davis's dead body level trade to the 49ers that he's just not going to make. So I think
even if he made it, the talk is he wants a bounty of picks.
Yeah.
The Niners are not in position at this point to give a bounty of picks. They're just not.
Maybe Trey Hendrickson, if you can thread the needle on a trade that you could swallow for him, is a possibility. And
well, I mean, the other
best option, but if Joey Bosa were willing to give the Niners a friends and family discount, that's the name that I think gets added.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one that's the cheapest. I mean, Joey Bosa, you could probably get just for, he's probably going to be a cap casualty, and you could probably get him for nothing. Or you could trade for him. You got to remember this. A few years ago, the Niners traded for Anquan Boldin, and Anquan Boldin was coming off of beating the Niners in the Super Bowl. I mean, it was like it wasn't like he was done. He was not done. He was playing at a very high level. The Niners got him, despite the fact he was playing at a really high level, for a 6th-round draft choice. Now, why? Because he was going to be a cap casualty. He was going to be cut. And so they're going to probably do the same thing here. Between Harold Landry, Joey Bosa, Trey Hendrickson, I could see all 3 of those guys being cap casualties at some point. And so I think they'll wind up getting traded. They're the kinds of players that probably could, at least in Hendrickson and Bosa's case, could probably call their shot. So they're not going to say trade me anywhere. They're going to say, because nobody's going to want to trade for a guy who doesn't want to be there. So they're going to say trade me where they want to go. If the Niners are on their list, if Joey says trade me to the Niners might be able to trade for Joey Bosa for a nominal late day 3 pick. I know that sounds crazy because his name's Joey Bosa, but I'm just saying, this is where you do get a player in a trade for nothing, and you go, why did the Ravens trade the 49ers, Anquan Bolden, for a 6th-round draft choice? Because they couldn't pay Anquan's salary, and the Niners decided they could.
Right. So, other than releasing him for nothing, a 6th round is better than nothing. So that's why they did it. So,
you may see the Niners do that, but I'll say this. The bigger news of the day is not Dinah Rossini. It's Tony Pauline, because Dinah Rossini also reported this week that the 49ers may trade Brandon Ayuk. And a bunch of teams are sniffing around Brandon Ayuk, which makes no sense at all. They just paid this guy. He's an overpaid receiver coming off his worst year with a crushing, life-altering knee injury. And we're supposed to believe that a bunch of NFL teams are so eager to have him that they're willing to trade assets to the 49ers for him. I don't believe that at all. I think that's just – she's carrying water for somebody, but that ain't the truth.
If there is any truth to it. And I'm still a Brandon Ayuk guy. I think he's a good player. I think he will be a good player in this league again. I thought that when he was at his best, he fit the 49ers very, very well. You trade him at the speed of light. Even with the very shallow pool of wide receiving talent that you have on your roster, if you could get out from this Brandon Ayuk contract right now, all the dead cap money that you'd have to be ingesting to do it, I would do it. I would get out of that contract.
I would too. Right now. I would too. And you say, well, okay, what do the Niners get out of it? Well, yeah, the Niners would take a big cap hit. Okay. No doubt. But there's talk that there are people in the ownership group in the front office that didn't want that contract, didn't like it, and felt kind of put upon by Kyle Shanahan in the 11th hour, and they were thinking that Ayuk was traded, and Shanahan ran upstairs and said, no, because he wanted to try to win games this year with Ayuk. I wonder what that trade would have been. I have no idea what it would have been, but I'm eager to. I also do believe that they would trade him. I just don't believe that there's anybody out there that would trade for him.
Yeah.
But you never know. You never know. And I will say this: he's not old. And maybe some people look at the injury he had and said he'll recover. I don't know. I can't imagine that one. But the Tony Pauline news, and he had 2 reports yesterday.
Okay,
you can take this stuff to the bank because Tony Pauline's a former NFL scout. He's tied in with the Niners. He's so tied in that he predicted Isaac Correndo to the Niners literally in March last year, a month before the draft. He came out yesterday with 2 reports. He writes and does podcasts for a sports publication called Sportskeeda. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but Sportskeeda.
Yes.
But anyway, he had 2 reports. One of them is that the Niners love Oluwafemi Oladejo of UCLA and want to take. And this is how specific his report was, Damon. The 49ers love Oladejo and will take him in the 2nd round. So when he said they'll take him in the 2nd round, that to me tells me, one, how current it is, because this guy's been billed in the 4th or 5th round for months, and only because of how he looked at the Senior Bowl did they say, oh, this guy's going higher, maybe 3rd round. Now he's saying the Niners may take him in the 2nd round. I'm just telling you, you can absolutely take this to the bank that the 49ers have real interest.
So this is a player that you've been talking about since before we even reached draft season, because you and Guy Haberman geeked out about him one night, right?
I asked Guy like 2 months ago, hey, give me somebody that you like. You cover, you do play-by-play college football. You're there. And not only are you're there in a way where there's no pressure on you to look or find anybody. You can just kind of wait for somebody to kind of pop out. And if nobody does, nobody does. Right. It's a beautiful spot. Who do you like? And he said, among others, but he said Oluwafemi Oladejo. And the Niners have met with Oluwafemi Oladejo. And I think the 49ers, they met him twice at the Senior Bowl, And then Tony Pauline says they love him and they're going to take him in the second round. He was coached by KJ Wright in Mobile, and you could see KJ Wright giving him high fives and pumping him up, and you know there's a relationship there. So that's interesting. The other report, very specific, also from Tony Pauline, was that the 49ers are going to look for, very specific report, offensive lineman, corner, and wide receiver in free agency.
Well,
so that's interesting.
Drew Dolman is the number one name on my board. It's the number one free agent target. Screw your running backs and your wide receivers across the board. Go get me the best center in football that is available. I don't care about the price. I don't give a shit. Go get him. Protect Brock Purdy. Make your running game, your passing game better. Make your entire offensive line better. And look, they just re-signed Ben Barch, and that's a move that I like. If you're going to be paying your starting left guard $1.3 million, go get fucking Drew Dolman right now. I mean,
well, here's the thing. I don't think it's going to be
offensive line.
I don't think it's going to be Drew Dolman. Drew Dolman's going to cost a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money, like $26 million a year, maybe more. But it's possible. It's definitely possible. He's on the short list. Other names to consider would be Tevin Jenkins from the Bears, who's a guard who's, younger, 26, not younger than Dahlman. Dahlman's also 26.
By the way,
younger than most free agents.
Feel free to yawn while you say that name because he plays with the passion of a yawn. That's not.
He's a young player who's got a lot of potential. He's a road grading guard, and then the guy who I would say is the most likely is James Daniels from the Steelers. He was part of some of the rumors involving Ayuk to the Steelers last summer. Why do I think they would go with James Daniels? Just because I think when you look at their depth chart, they have Zakel, they have Nugent, they have, 3 or 4 other guys, Barch. Obviously, they still have Jake Brendel under contract. They have some guys at center that they like. I think that they know that they need to upgrade the interior, but they're not sure if any of their young centers are coming of age or if they're going to need a starting left guard if Banks leaves. I think James Daniels, who played at Iowa, played with the Bears, now played with the Steelers, can play guard or center. I think he might be the call just because, one, I think he's cheaper, and 2, he can play guard and center as opposed to just center. So if they go for Dahlman, Dahlman's the center. And all those other backup centers probably have to either be cut or whatever because they're not going to play. But if you go with Daniels, you could plug him in at left guard, and if Brendel stinks, you can move him to center. And also it gives you a little bit more flexibility for the draft come April. But those are the offensive line options. The corner options are DJ Reed, Paulson Adebo from Stanford, Noah Igbenogany, who's was a former first-round pick. And a lot of people think DJ Reed is going to be the guy there because of the connection to Saleh. And then wide receiver-wise, there's a bunch of guys, but T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Darius Slayton, Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, Tutu Atwell. I think they'll probably add one of those receivers as well, but very specific. Corner, wide receiver, offensive line in free agency, according to Tony Pauline.
Okay. I think that this team is going to have more free agent flexibility than we thought because just this cap is growing. We've got the new cap number, and the cap is going up and up and up and up, and it's going to keep going up and up and up. I wonder, does signing Ben Barch tip the philosophy? Like, are they out of looking O-line with a top pick now? No. I think they are. I think they're looking D-line in their first pick. Not that Ben Barch is the reason why you're not drafting offensive linemen, but I really do think that they think that they got phenomenal value, and they're going to look to plug some phenomenal value next to, Trent Williams. And all I can tell you is that searching for phenomenal value across the 49ers offensive line has made the offensive line regress. So
they got the best offensive lineman in last year's draft in the 3rd round. I think they're going to try to do the same this year.
It's hard to have lightning strike twice. It really is.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think they're out of the offensive line in round one idea, but I do think they're going to trade back from 11. And my guess is that if you said, how do I think they're going to play this? I think they're going to trade back from 11 and probably go offensive tackle or defensive tackle, and then go defensive end in round 2. And then whatever they didn't go in round 1, they're going to go in round 3. So like, give you an example. I would say they trade back from 11 into the teens. Okay. If Kelvin Banks or Armand Membu or Josh Simmons or one of these guys that they're projected to go in the first round, if those guys are there, I could see them going with an offensive lineman there. If they don't go offensive line there, I think they could go Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, some of the defensive tackles, I think, come into the mix later on in the first round. Then I think they go pass rusher in round 2, probably Oluwadejo. But I think they'll, Landon Jackson from Arkansas had a tremendous workout. The big winner yesterday was the Boston College kid, Donovan Ezeraku, who's one of his coaches just got hired by the Niners. This guy was amazing. Now, he's smaller than the Niners normally like in defensive ends at 6'2", about 250.
Right. They just brought in their secondary coach from Boston College, right?
Right. And this guy, Ezeraku, is, as I said off the start of the show today, he checks both boxes, right? He is a great player. I think 17 sacks this year. I mean, he's a great player, right? And then he worked out like a great player. Like, he was the best player. He was the best in the 10-yard split. He was the best in the drills. He had the highest grades across the board. So he's a great athlete who worked out great. So I think Ezeraku could be their pick in round 2. I think Landon Jackson could be their pick in round 2. I think Kyle Kennard could be their pick in round 2. If Shamar Stewart somehow miraculously fell, he could be their pick in round 2. And Olufemi Oladejo, after what Pauline just said, the way he's rising up the charts. If they really want him, they probably have to use a second-round pick on him. So my guess is defensive tackle or offensive tackle in a trade back in round 1, defensive end in round 2, and then in round 3, you either go offensive tackle, and I think, the guys at that point would be like Wyatt Milam, Emory Jones, Anthony Belton, Ozzie Trapilo, that second group. Or you do what, you go your direction and you say, you know what? CJ West, come on down. CJ West was really, really good. He's a one technique, right? He's a nose guard. He's an interior player. But he also has enough movement ability to play the 3. So I think he'll be that guy, Darius Alexander, Ty Robinson, Shamar Turner, these defensive linemen that had really good workouts.
This is good, Larry. Look, I know we were constantly.
I think that's what you're looking at. Aeneas Peebles. I mean, is another Savion Jones. That's the way they're going to play it. They're going to go O-line or O tackle or D tackle in round 1, D end in round 2, O-line or D tackle in round 3, whichever one they didn't go in round 1. I think that's pretty much how it gets rolling.
I think that's got to do it. And add Drew Dolman and go full-on investment in trench warfare, and that's the way I go with this draft if I am the 49ers. I really do. I mean, on Monday, you were talking about wide receivers they would take in the first round maybe to replace Debo, and I was like, what are you talking about, man? And you're like, no, it could happen. And I know we're just looking for stuff to talk about. We don't want to come down each other's chimneys declaring each other wrong, but I thought you were crazy on Monday. This has to be.
Well, first of all, it's
defensive line everywhere. Every offensive, defensive line everywhere. Draft 2 guys all the time. Offensive line, defensive line. That's where I want to start. I want the first 5-6 picks of this draft to be on the line of scrimmage. I'm cool with it. And the Niners, I think, should prioritize that.
Do you think you can win a Super Bowl with Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall? Because I don't.
I'm more convinced I could be a playoff team with those guys than a bad offensive line and a defensive line you can run through like a pasta strainer.
You're not winning the Super Bowl with those two receivers.
How about this? Odds are you're not going to win the Super Bowl either. Yeah, the odds are you're not winning the Super Bowl, and that's how the season starts for everybody. Odds are you're not going to win the Super Bowl. Add the players that you build football teams around. To me, that's interior players. Build from the inside out.
I disagree. I disagree. Go for greatness. You know, you tell me Jerry Rice wasn't a good pick in 1985?
Right.
He was a first-round receiver.
Yeah, he was a first round. But yeah, okay, but that's Jerry Rice. Okay, so, you know,
so what I'm saying,
Jenkins was a good pick in 2000, whatever that was.
I didn't say every receiver's a good pick, but what I'm saying is go for greatness. Don't make a bunch of moronic rules that if you make rules, you're just making rules that are going to prevent you from taking the best player.
Hey, look,
how about this? How about this? Screw your rules and take the best player. Because Luther Burden III is a great player. He's a great player. And it's like the Eagles. Oh, you know, the Eagles won the Super Bowl and they had a great line. Their receivers were Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert. They had great receivers too. And those great receivers played well. And their running back was the MVP of the league almost in Saquon Barkley. So how can they may have had the best collection of weapons that there was. And yet it's like because they had a good O-line and a good D-line, it's like that all their weapons didn't matter.
Let me take you back 2 years ago.
Come on.
2 years ago, Larry, when the 49ers were going to win the Super Bowl in Las Vegas because they had the best collection of offensive talent in football. That's how it was being touted back then. Between Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, these guys had more weapons, and they were going to win. And then they got beat up front. And that's what happened.
Yeah, but Damon, they won 14 games and went to the Super Bowl with this horrible offensive line. You know, I mean, and by the way, what happened this year? Let's talk about that for a second. Yeah, they were in the Super Bowl last year with these awesome weapons that don't mean anything. And then this year, those awesome weapons that combined for 40 touchdowns combined for 2, and they won 6 games. So don't tell me that the receivers don't matter. The receivers do matter.
You just finally said that you agreed with me, and now you're arguing something.
No, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. If you think I do, I don't.
No, but you just said that the 49ers are going to go D-line, O-line, or D-line again, which is what I've been preaching.
But it's not.
It's not about the wide receiver or the running back. It's early with a premium pick this year. I don't.
It can be. It can be. I mean. I don't agree with that. I mean, in some of the scenarios, I think the smartest play is to trade back into the teens and take the receiver. Why? Because you don't have, first of all, you can't afford T. Higgins. And you're not going to the Super Bowl with Jacob Cowing, Ricky Pearsall, and Jawan Jennings. I mean, come on, man. That's an awful trio of guys. If you're trying to win the Super Bowl, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. So you're going to have to get a great receiver. I've talked about it endlessly this offseason. You could rebuild your entire offensive line. Get Drew Dahlman. Rebuild your defensive line. Get whoever. Get Myles Garrett. You have a great D line. You have a great O line. If you're still throwing the ball to Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing, you're not winning. So part of this plan has to include a great receiver or you don't have any shot.
I don't know if great receiver is really out there. Go get a good receiver in free agency that you can add for the right price. And like you said, Tony Pauline is suggesting that could happen in free agency. So I think you do that. I know that Kyle Shanahan has looked at and spit on enough rookie wide receivers for me to just not trust that scenario very much. So we'll see. I mean, we'll all see. There's no reason to argue about what hasn't happened yet. It will all happen and we'll know. But I think prioritizing trench warfare is the right idea. It would be my idea. We'll see if the 49ers agree with that idea when the NFL draft starts.
Who's the hottest drafting team in the sport? Detroit. Who did they draft in the first round the last couple of years? Jameson freaking Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs. You can draft receivers or running backs high. You just have to get great players. That's it. Great players. It doesn't matter. Ashton Gianti from Boise State's a great freaking player. You're not a bad team if you draft a great player. You just stop drafting for don't see. I don't like the idea of going in and making rules, because then you start saying, well, we need a receiver. Then your focus is narrow. When your focus is narrow, that's when you make mistakes. That's when you have to choose AJ Jenkins. Why? Because we need a speed receiver.
I think it's a lot easier to draft a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs and, Sam Laporta when you have already in your previous drafts before that selected Agent Hutchinson and Penei Sewell and, McNeil, who they drafted as well. I mean, they came back for all the goodies after they stocked the pantry correctly by getting great.
Well, they haven't won, first of all. They haven't won anything. Okay, that's one. Two, look at Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow and the Bengals said, you know what? We're not going to go that route. We're going to take Jamar Chase. You think they regret it? He's the best receiver there is. So I just think bottom line is this year's got to be about helping out Brock Purdy. You're going to sign Brock Purdy. You're trying to rebuild your team. I think you can rebuild your team, but you got to help Brock Purdy. So you got to protect Brock Purdy, and you got to give Brock Purdy some dynamic weapons.
Dre Greenlaw has been talked about at this combine, and we've seen, I think, the most to-date public proclamation of we want him back from John Lynch talking about Dre Greenlaw. He should be talking like that now that we know what the new NFL cap number is. Hopefully they can add Dre Greenlaw, but it also feels like they're possibly preparing the fan base for a goodbye here, saying that there's a lot of interest, and testing the market could bring a 3-year level of contract to Dre at another team that we're not willing to give him. So I can't tell here in the combine lying season if John Lynch is being sincere in the pursuit of getting him back, or is kind of setting everyone up for the reason why he's going to leave.
Robert Saleh wants him back. Because Robert Saleh knows that his best players want him back.
Yep.
So I think, first and foremost. Fred wants him back. Bosa wants him back. All the guys in the room want him back because he's their culture player. I mean, you just have to understand. You got to know which players are not every. There's 53 guys on a team. There's another 16 on the practice squad. You got about 75 guys hanging out in the room with injured guys and all that. Not every guy makes an impact in the room. Some guys enter the room and leave the room, and there's no real feel. Other guys have a profound impact on the room, and you just have to realize which guys those are if you run the team. And Dre Greenlaw is that guy. He is the most violent player. He is the leader. He's the guy that guys look up to. He's the guy. He's the tone setter. So you gotta have a couple culture players. Now the concern is he hasn't been able to finish a game in a long time. So, and that's a concern. And how beat up is his body? And that's why you can't give him a 3-year, $24 million deal. But you can give him a 1-year, $7 million deal, or a 1-year, $8 million deal. And what I would do is, and it sounds like they're trying to get it done before free agency, because they know there's going to be somebody who's probably going to throw some money at him in free agency. And they're trying to prevent that. And they're full court press trying to get him signed before free agency starts. I hope they can. I think he's interested in staying. But to me, this is an awesome draft. Yesterday was another great example for young linebackers who are undersized, who are going to be there in the middle rounds. And I think the Niners need to draft at least one or two of them. And I would love it if they had Dre there to kind of pass that, this is our standard down to these guys. So I think he's vitally important. I think Fred and Bosa think he's vitally important. I think because they do, I think Saleh's like, absolutely got to have this guy. But there's no guarantees here.
He's like their Andre Iguodala. I didn't realize how much he meant to these players until these players started talking about him at the retirement ceremony. And okay, now I get it. David Bonilla.
There's always somebody who's like, hey, man, this is our guy. This guy means that. I'll tell you, a big one this year was Eric Armstead. And a big one last year was Jimmy Ward.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Ward had a presence. Eric Armstead had a presence. This is where some tragedy happens. People run to those guys. They want to get those guys' thoughts. And when you take those guys out of the room, man, it's hard as a void. So Dre Greenlaw is that guy, and hopefully they
we talked earlier about how a player that they've interviewed formally has a better chance to be drafted. I mean, that seems like a no-duh statement, but it's out there. We've got the numbers to prove it. The 49ers have talked with, according to David Bonilla of, what is that, Niners Wire that he writes for? 49ers Web Zone. David Bonilla says that they talked with Oklahoma State linebacker Nick Martin at the Combine. Martin's 2024 season was cut short due to a knee injury, but in 2023, he recorded 140 tackles for the Cowboys, and that was the most by any Oklahoma State player in 40 years. He also had 6 sacks and 2 picks to go along with it. So Nick Martin is a linebacker that the 49ers have talked with out of Oklahoma State, and maybe a name to keep an eye on. And
he's great. He's great. He's 5'11". He's 220. Another small linebacker. This is the trend. Small linebackers who can run. This guy ran 4.53 and really looked good in the workouts. Yeah, he had a great day.
And it just sounds like the 49ers, and they know that this is going to take a little massaging to get past their own fan base. Not that we should be talking about place kickers and massages anymore, Justin Tucker. It sounds like they're bringing back Jake Moody. And it sounds like Jake Moody, might still be the guy for the job again. I would have the new special teams coordinator weigh in heavily on this decision. But they obviously thought quite a bit of Moody to take him as high as they did in the draft. And they really think that last year's injury correlates directly with the struggles. If they think he can mentally get over what has been a rough start with the 49ers, it sounds like they're getting everybody ready for year 3 of Jake Moody. I don't know how I feel about that, to be totally honest with you. I would say approach that with caution. And if you're approaching something with caution, probably you should just walk away from it. But I get it. They've made an investment. They want to see it through. I don't know if it's the right idea or not, but what do you think of year 3 of Jake Moody with a big pat on the back of confidence from the Niners?
I mean, why? It's like, why do you keep doubling down when something's a mistake? Take the L and move on. And it's like, Jake may be good somewhere else. So what? Who cares? Andy Lee has been fantastic. They cut him like 10 years ago. He's still punting in the NFL. How many Niner fans are clenching their teeth? Andy Lee. Oh, nobody cares. And nobody's going to care about your bad kicker who suddenly becomes less bad somewhere else. Go find a veteran kicker. Do not draft a kicker. Hold workouts for kickers between, now and training camp, and go get one. But I would look. Jason Sanders made $4.5 million this last year. Supposedly he's going to be a cap casualty. You can't dig up $5 million for Jason Sanders. That's what I would do. I'd get out of the Jake Moody game altogether. And if he goes somewhere else and he's good, oh well, so what? Who cares? But guess what happens if he shows up in week 1, and it's like, it's bad enough. This is why you don't draft kickers in the 3rd round, because it takes an already high pressure job, and you now add a whole layer of pressure. It's like, the best part about kickers is you sign them off the street, and if they're good, you got them for nothing. And if they're bad, you cut them and sign somebody else off the street. Where it's bad is when you invest a 3rd round pick in him, and then it's like, when he's bad, well, we don't know what to do because we invested a 3rd round pick in him, so we're just going to sit here and hope.
How about
listen to Billy Bean. Hope is not a plan.
If it was as easy as it was to walk away from Trey Lance when you knew that was the right thing to do, why is this harder? So, okay, but having said all that,
I mean, how many games you want to lose? How many times you want to lose?
He's got a big leg. I will give him that. He's got a leg.
He doesn't kick it through the back of the end zone. So what good is that? He does not kick the ball consistently through the back of the end zone. So does he have a great leg or does he not have a great leg? Because he didn't have a great leg when he's kicking it to the 5-yard line. I mean, if he kicked every one of the kickoffs through the back of the end zone, I'd be like, yeah, guy's got a big leg.
Boyer.
He hasn't done that.
Brant Boyer, make the call. You're the new special teams guy. Go have Jake Moody move into your house for 1 week, and at the end of that week, make your decision. By the way, Franco in the chat says reports coming in from Jordan Schultz, who apparently is, stopped screaming at Ian Rappaport long enough in a Starbucks in Indianapolis to file the report that the Commanders and Texans have been big players in the Debo sweepstakes. I don't know. I would suppose both of them because they have Debo connections between D'Amico and Adam Peters across both those franchises. Look, I think trading for Debo Samuel would be a hard sell for a team's front office to make to itself. I don't think anybody's trading for Debo. I think he's going to have to be cut and then signed. I don't think there's a Debo market really.
See, I disagree. And it's not that I think he's that great. I really don't. But I can picture a Debo market. Why? Because he is kind of a very unique thing. It's like, it's there. He's like a vehicle that, it's like a world full of 2-wheel drive vehicles, and he's the one 4-wheel drive.
Wait a minute. Is he unique because he really is that much of an individual object, or is he unique because no one can really figure out what to do with him anymore?
No, he
doesn't dominate
even before his
as a running back. So it feels like he's lost in the gray area, and we're being super nice about it by calling him, unique. I don't know.
He was this player. At this point. He was this player at South Carolina. He was this player before he regressed. So he has a unique skill set. He does things that other guys don't. He's a big back who you can hand the ball to, and he can run the end around. And you got to remember this, though. Not everybody looks at things the way you do. Some people look at this and say, the Niners fucking suck. The Niners fucking suck. That's what teams look at. They say, you know what? The Niners offensive line's not good. Now, I know and you know that Debo's regressed, but look at it from afar. The Niners offensive line's not good, not highly rated, and Debo is not old as far as chronological age. I can tell you he's done, but guess what? You have to take my word for it. What you're going to trust is that number next to his name that says that he's 28. And you're going to look at free agency and be like, yeah, Devontae's 33 and this guy's 32 and we can get D-Hop and D-Hop's 34 and this guy, Debo's only 28.
Dude, but he's 28 million. That's the 28 you need to be worried about, not the fact that he's only 28. He is.
Yeah, but Damon, it's a cap. It's the cap. It's a salary cap sport, dude. You can trade for him, and if you're trading for him, first of all, anybody who's trading for him is going to redo that deal. They're going to rip up that deal. It's a 1-year deal. They're going to rip up that deal and make it a 3-year deal and make it way more cap friendly. So the cap issue is not an issue for the new team that trades for him. It's more about he's done at 28. And if you looked at the guys who were like Debo, who ran through you, Earl Campbell was done at 28. Larry Johnson, remember Larry Johnson who played at Penn State, played for the Chiefs? He was awesome. He was like the best running back in football. He was done at like 28. Most of the guys who run through you, by the time they get to 28, 29, they're done.
Right. And if you and I know that, If you and I know that, I'm guessing most guys in the NFL's front offices around this league know that. I just don't think anyone's trading for Debo. I think the market is an illusion that is created because Jordan Schultz, who, we found out is Howard Schultz's son, by the way, the former Starbucks CEO. So, he's born with a silver coffee spoon in his mouth. I don't know. To me, that
and decided to become an actual media person instead of being I'm going to live off daddy's trust fund. He decided I'm going to be a media person and do what I want to do, which I admire. I admire Jordan Schultz.
I do too, but I've never really understood, look, this isn't about Jordan Schultz at all.
Right. It's not even about Jordan Schultz. It's about Debo. It's about Debo. It's about D'Amico. It's about Peters.
I don't think Debo's got a market. And if you're in the market for Debo, come and get him. I mean, seriously, you can't, please.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. Yesterday, 2 days ago, there was a report that said that the Texans want Debo Samuel. So yesterday, D'Amico spoke at the combine, and everybody ran up to him. D'Amico. What do you think of Debo? And he could have been like, hey man, no comment. Or hey, he could have said what other guys have said. Hey, he's under contract with the Niners. That's what Adam Peters said. He said, he's under contract with the Niners. I can't talk about him. And then he got whisked away. And Matt Barrows was like, yeah, but they gave him a right to ask for a trade. And by that point, he was gone. But D'Amico was asked the same question yesterday. And you know what he said? He's like, I really like great players, and Debo's a great player. So there you go.
Like something you'd say about a friend that you liked. There's no gravity to that statement at all. It's a nice thing to say about somebody without saying anything at all.
You don't have to say anything. You don't have to say anything at all. But I mean, he said, they said to him, hey, there's a report that you like Debo Samuel. And he's like, yeah, I like great players, and Debo's a great player. So we'll see. I mean, none of this makes sense. It doesn't make sense, but here's you got to remember this. All it takes is a team to think, hey, you know what? Because the compensation's not going to be high. The compensation's going to be nominal, and if anything, I mean, you're talking about a 5th-round pick. Maybe a 4th if there's multiple teams, but it's not a high draft pick compensation kind of a trade. So it's really just a matter of, do you want to jump the line? And that's the only reason. And teams do this. Teams do trade picks for players that are going to be cut, just because if they're cut, now they've got to push in front of 6 other teams that want him. And if you don't think you can and you really want him, and the only reason anybody would really want this player is because he's unique. And if I give you an example, I don't think Denver's going to be a team, but Denver supposedly wants a joker. They want that wide receiver, running back, tight end, H-back that they had with Taysom Hill. A lot of people think the Niners are going to sign Taysom Hill.
Debo gets cut, you buy me a steak. Debo gets traded.
I'm not buying you anything.
Debo gets traded, I buy you a steak. Debo gets cut, you buy me a steak. Debo gets traded, I buy you a steak. We'll go out to dinner. We'll have a nice little night.
All right, there we go. Fine, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to put you buy me a steak, I make you a grilled cheese. We'll put fair odds on this.
Okay. Okay, and what about Ayuk?
I'm not wagering any meals on Brandon Ayuk. I don't know. That's still undefined because I don't know what Brandon Ayuk is. What I know is Debo is a distressed asset that you'd be stupid to trade for, and that goes for everybody in football. That's what I know. That's what I think I know anyways, but what do I know?
My whole thing, I know that he's not the player that he was, but I think people are going to look at him and go, behind our line instead of their line, we can get, 28-year-old Debo. I think people are looking at that age and looking at the Niner line and saying, you know what, we could take him, but we'll see.
By the way, I never like getting breaking news from the chat. But we have here, Keeping the Faith says Stafford staying in L.A. It is breaking news. The only thing I can tell you about that is it could be breaking news today because the Rams and Stafford are meeting today to discuss his future. And maybe his future will remain with the Los Angeles Rams. The other news was that the New York Giants and the Raiders were possibly prepared to give Stafford a 2-year, $100 million plus level extension, and that's what Stafford was looking for. That was a number that the Rams didn't want to approach, which is why they said, go find a deal if you can, and they were going to meet today. Well, it sounds like that meeting has brought the Rams and Stafford back together, which is too bad for the 49ers because the news was going to be if Stafford leaves, they might be interested in Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers can't beat the Niners, so I thought that was going to be nice. But there you go. There's the moving parts on all of that. What do you think?
They asked for a lot for Stafford. I mean, supposedly they wanted the Giants' first-round pick, which was going to be whatever that is, second pick, third pick, whatever. They have a high pick. They have a top 5 pick, and they wanted the Giants to give them their top 5 pick. I think they were just doing the heat check in a quarterback market. They know there's some desperate teams. Brian Daboll's out, and Joe Shane are out in New York if they don't do something significant. And I think they were just trying. And I don't know if I would put a lot of credence in today's news. There's no right. Games for a while. This is more gamesmanship. I would say Stafford is not going to play for the Rams this year. That would be my guess.
Well, we'll see. I know. Again, we're hosting a show. We're not reading breaking news right now, but thanks very much for passing that along in the chat. Look, we're going to get to super chats here in a second. There's one more thing that I do want to bring up. And again, there's a lot of what we think and what we know. And sometimes we pass along what we think is what we know. And we're really just giving hunches. Here is something that I absolutely know. Extending George Kittle should be the simplest thing that the 49ers do this offseason. This should be done immediately. There's no problems there. Now, I once said the exact same thing about Trent Williams, but Trent Williams, went full on holdout, and that thing got a little weird before it got normal again. There's no holding out for Kittle, and Kittle has zero poker face on what he wants his future to be. He wants to retire a 49er. You would assume the 49ers would want one of their 20 greatest players, and he is in this rare category, Larry, where he's one of the 20 greatest 49ers of all time. And he qualifies for the list without holding a Lombardi trophy. Just about everybody who's a great Niner, you have to have one Lombardi trophy. He is in that Patrick Willis. Doesn't matter that he hasn't won. He's one of the greatest ever. He is the greatest tight end in the history of the 49ers, bar none. George Kittle, he's not slowing down. He just had an awesome year. If you're worried about wide receiver depth, there's another reason to have George Kittle back and make him more of the focal point of the offense than he was last year. Hey, diddle, re-sign George Kittle. The salary cap just grew 24.8% over the last 2 years. There's got to be money there for George. Get it done quickly, get it done with a handshake and a smile. Everything that is right about a football player can be found in George Kittle. This is a no-brainer. Get it done. Get it done yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, they will. I mean, there's no urgency to getting this done. They can do this last. As far as, because they know Kittle ain't going anywhere.
Let's get these price points set in stone. There's so many moving pieces. I want numbers that are now concrete and not mythical because of the mythical Brock number. We need Brock's number as soon as we can get it. We need George's number as soon as we can get it. Then if you can go get Drew Dolman. Then if you can really bring Dre Greenlaw back. Some of these numbers need to become concrete, I think, as fast as possible. Again,
I think Kittle's willing to play with them and work with them. So I think you do Kittle's deal last. He finished behind Trey McBride and Brock Bowers for receiving yards. Both of those guys, though, had way more receptions. He led all tight ends, 14.2 yards per reception. He was tied for second with 8 touchdowns. So Pro Football Focus gave him the best grade, 92.4 receiving grade.
Like a Pro Bowl tackle.
Yeah, he's a big-time player. I mean, he had the second best PFF run blocking grade at 70.8. I mean, he's the all-around tight end for sure. I mean, Kelsey may retire at some point. I think Laporta's a better receiver. Bowers is probably a better receiver, but they don't block like this guy.
No.
So Kittle has gotten, he had over 1,000 receiving yards and less than 80 receptions. So I mean, he's got great chemistry with Purdy.
Yeah, in order to say anybody, player X, tight end X is better than George Kittle, you are factoring in an age that, is beyond George's control now. So it's, George has gotten older. That is the tax that we all pay as we walk through life. But he is still, again, if blocking matters, He's the best tight end in football still. And
let's hit our supers here. Fuji Simeon's thoughts on the NFLPA grade for the Niners. I mean, it's like they were given an A minus, and they were one of the, they got great grades. And by the way, once again, for all the people jumping up and down, oh, Kyle Shanahan, he got an A or an A minus or something.
Right. It's a toxic locker room. The locker room is given up. They have given up on Kyle Shanahan. It's over. Guys are tuning him out. Well, the biggest comments that players came away with was they're impressed by the team's culture, which is set by Kyle Shanahan. And the other thing that I thought was really good for the 49ers, since all armies march on the strengths of their stomachs, they got great food reviews. Apparently, the Niners dining room is
they got great reviews for everything, right? I mean, the lowest grade they got on anything was a B minus. Right. I mean, I actually heard people trying to take them to task for their training staff because their training staff got a B minus. It's like, dude, when I don't know about you, but when I went to school, I was happy with a B minus. You want to give me a B minus? That's fine. Well, that means I'm passed the class. I got a better than average grade, and none of this means jack anyway. And let's move on.
I'll just tell you that I can certainly look past a B minus to the point where I don't even see it because you got all these A's. And
well, I mean, how about this? The Jets got an F. There were 10 teams that got D's or D minuses. If you really want to sit there and have some kind of meaningful, oh my God, then maybe you ought to point to the D minuses and not the B minuses. That would just be my thought.
Overall, Clarence, A minus for ownership, A for head coach. Food and dining was an A. Weight room, A minus. Strength coaches, A. Team travel, A minus. Treatment of families, B plus. I was surprised that number isn't better, as much as the Niners love to ass kiss everybody. I'm surprised that's not better. Obviously, the Niners' wives have gotten harder to please here. Nutrition, dedication, B plus. Locker room, B. Training room, B minus. Training staff, B minus. Again, they praise the culture.
I'd love to know why the locker room's a B. You literally could have most people in the media could not throw a football from one end of the locker room to the other end of the locker room. And it got a B. It's a gigantic locker room with tons of room. Unbelievable. They got all kinds of different training facilities there. That one surprised me a little bit. Clarence Beeks, subscribe to Larry, guys. NFL draft season is his wheelhouse. Thank you, Clarence. Fuji Simeon, Larry, tonight, SI versus Reardon, CCS championship. Ooh. Crusaders probably going to win that. That would be my guess. Joseph Ernberg, keeping Moody is a telltale of the upcoming season. Oh, God. I love the negativity. Joseph Ernberg.
We're going to clap back on some of your negativity. We'll give you that one on Moody.
BA, BP, Debo, and 11 for Garrett. Start Tanner. Yeah. You're going to trade Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk, and Debo, and the 11th pick for Garrett. What do you need Garrett for if you don't have a quarterback? Ernberg, Joey would literally be throwing away money. Talking about Bosa, Ricky Williams, Ayuk, and a pick for T. Higgins. I'd do that deal in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I don't know why Cincinnati does that deal. I don't know. I don't understand. You think people don't, I don't understand why, Damon doesn't understand why people don't want may want Debo. I don't understand why people would want Ayuk. Ayuk at this point could be, you're paying him a lot and he could be nothing compared to what he was. He had a major injury. Debo just needs to lose a few pounds and get motivated. We saw what Debo looked like against Miami late in the year when he's motivated. If he gets in shape, he could have one big year. He's not diminished. Ayuk's diminished. Ayuk has a life-altering injury.
It was ACL, PCL. They tie those things back together like shoelaces. I don't think we can call it life-altering. Like a blown
How could it
out
not
wing
be?
is no longer
How
a
could it not be?
catastrophic injury.
How could it not be?
Oh,
There's only 3 ligaments and a meniscus. There's only 4 things that you possibly could tear. He tore 3.
It ain't.
How could it not be?
It ain't great, but it's also recoverable.
I do not believe that he'll ever be as good as he was. I just don't believe it. Don't believe it. Joshua Wyatt says, what do you guys think of Tyreek Williams? He checks all the boxes, and in any other year, he'd be a surefire 1, but he might fall out of the first with the D-line depth in this draft. He's a talented, athletic D-lineman. I thought he was the best player on Ohio State's defensive front for sure. He's better than Hamilton. He's better than those edge pieces. I like Tyleek. I didn't love what I saw from him yesterday. I got to be honest. He didn't look great. He really didn't look great. So I like other guys a whole lot more. Let's just say that. Ernberg, can we all just agree we aren't going to win anyway? Okay, there we go. That's negative. His story, trade the 11th pick for Bills 30th, 56th, 62nd. This scenario gives the Niners 6 picks in the top 100, work the phone lines, and get those extra picks. I would make that move. I absolutely would. You're getting a late first, and you're getting 2 second-round picks. I think that's a really high price to pay, but you know what? Moving from 30 to 11 is a long way to move. So, you know what?
No, I'm gonna want.
I like that, but it would be tough.
I'd want a 30th, a 56th, a 62nd, and a 4th the following year.
Look at you.
Coming back from. To go from 11 to 30. That's really trading back.
I wouldn't mind a player too. Heck, something more. Yeah, you need something more there, because you trade the 11th pick to the 30th pick. Though I'll say this, I watched Landon Jackson yesterday from Arkansas. I would love to see Landon Jackson opposite Nick Bosa. I think you might be able to get Landon Jackson at 30, and I think he could play like a first-round pick. So I'm not too scared about that, but I'd like a little bit more value. Justin E., how do you like Syracuse tight end Gadsden? I think he runs 4.4 today. I love him. He's a flexed out tight end who, super athletic. He's just like a jumbo wide receiver. He hooked up with Kyle McCord a lot this year. They used him on the line of scrimmage more this year than they have in past years. But I like him. He's a 6'4", 250, super athletic, super rangy, really good jumper. Yeah, if he runs 4.4, that'll be an interesting spot because I love Luther Burden. I love Tetaroa McMillan. It's not a vintage year for wide receivers beyond those two guys. But the Niners are going to need a receiver, or if they don't get a receiver, they're going to need somebody else. Elijah Arroyo from Miami is a great receiving tight end. This kid Gadsden from Syracuse, a great receiving tight end. It's a great running back draft. If you're not going to have Ayuk until November, and I think that's probably what's the case is, somehow you're going to have to either add a receiver, a tight end, a running back, do things differently. You're going to have to add something because that's a lot of – he's your number one receiver, and you may not have him till Thanksgiving. And the reality is you can't be out of it. This is a big year for Shanahan and Lynch. They are not going to set themselves up so that they're potentially out of the playoff race before Ayuk gets back. So, yeah, they're going to be looking for weapons in this draft for sure. I don't know what position, but they'll be looking for guys to replace their weapons because Debo and Ayuk are that's their engine offensively. You take those guys out, Conley's a free agent. You take him out. You're asking Cowing to be way better, and he wasn't very good last year. You're asking Pearsall to be really good, and he was only good at the last couple of games. And you're asking JJ, to do exactly what he did, and nobody's been hurt yet, and you're already super thin. So, that receiver position is going to be, to me, the most interesting part of the Niner offseason is what do they do with Ayuk, what do they do with Debo, and what do they do at receiver when those guys aren't there? And then we have one last one here. Carson Taylor. How do you guys feel about Savion Williams? He reminds me of a young Odell with his agility and speed. I love him. Hey, and he's his 40 time's going to define exactly where he goes, but I love this player. He's so big, so physical. Now, he doesn't catch the ball well. When I say he's like Debo, he's like Debo. He's a running back. He's a quarterback. He's, hitches, screens, slants, but he doesn't have ball skills like a receiver. But he's 6'5", 225, and he may run in the 4.4s. So I love him, but, And you don't need a chain mover. You have Pearsall, you have JJ. What you really need is somebody who's kind of more dynamic, and we'll see how dynamic he is when he works out. But he's a great, unique player, kind of like Debo. All right, that's going to do it for us. Damon, what do you got cooking at 11?
I got Tim Kawakami joining me at 11. We're going to be talking about an incredible signature game from Steph Curry, and then obviously all the news coming back around the NFL Combine. I think, when it comes to covering Bay Area sports, there aren't too many guys who can say they do it better than Kawakami. So he'll be joining me for a robust 25, 30-minute conversation about the state of Bay Area sports. Looking forward to that.
Awesome. Tune into Damon's channel. Everybody give him a like and subscribe. Kawakami at 11.
Thank you very much. Thanks to your vast audience, which you started mining since you got to YouTube about a year and a half before I did. You have helped me grow my channel an awful lot. I'm very proud to say that today we went over 28,000 subs for our very first time. So thanks to everyone. Please like and subscribe. Means a lot. Thank you very much.
And I'll be going in 5 minutes with Chase Sr., our first live stream since the Super Bowl, and we'll talk a lot about the Combine and also his thoughts on how the Niners, he covers the Niners and the Eagles. We're going to get into right now, how do the Niners close the gap on the Eagles from Chase's perspective?
Trench warfare. That's it. Offensive line, defensive line. That's what you need.